of course, a father too, and blowing minds all over the people all over the world. No other than Mr. Adam Heffnerr.
Yes, hello, Daniel.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Adam. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Adam Heffnerr. I own a couple metal fabrication businesses out in Springfield, Tennessee, just north of Nashville. And I've got two little girls that I just started homeschooling this year. And, just been growing this business with my family the whole time. Started it out of my house in my garage back in California. And really it's always been, the idea was for it to be a family run and operated business out of my house. I kind of assumed it would take about a decade before I got out of the garage, and everything just happened a lot faster than I expected.
Well, Apple and Amazon have the same story like you. So, Mr. Adam Heffnerr, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about fatherhood and entrepreneurship. How being a dad has shaped your business success. Entrepreneur writes that the year has your daughter was born was also most successful year for your business. How did becoming a father clarify or sharpen your business priorities? And did it coincide with turning point in your company's growth?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My first daughter was born before the business really got started. I was just doing side work out of my garage when she was born.
Mhm.
And it just kind of flipped a switch. My dad said, as soon as I found out that my wife was pregnant, that my whole demeanor shifted. And I didn't feel it, but the people around me saw it. And they just said that I took life more seriously. And that's when I really started looking at entrepreneurship instead of having a job, because I felt this responsibility to provide basically the life that I wanted to provide for my kids. And, financial success makes that a lot easier. I mean, and it's not the whole picture. I think kids really spell love, Time. They don't care about the money you have. They care about the time you spend with them. And when I was working a job for an hourly wage, all I could do was trade more time to get more money. And once I flipped into entrepreneurship, I started finding ways to buy my time back by, being more creative and taking some risks, honestly.
And did fatherhood reinforce your existing values or lead you to redefine success and impact,
Yeah,
Mr. Adam?
yeah, the values question is an interesting one because I was raised really religious. And when I got out of the house, I kind of went on my own path and tried some different things. And becoming a father really reinforced the values that my parents put into me of, honesty and basically leading by example, because your kids are always watching you. So everything you do, a lot of times more than what you say, has an impact on them. So that's a big reason why I wanted to build the business out of my house, was to show them that path, because I grew up in a family business and my dad would bring work home for us to do. We would label boxes. He owned a meat manufacturing business, and he involved us in the work. And so we understood the value of a dollar and the value of work, and how to basically just be a good employee, honestly, because if you're going to be a good boss, you have to know what a good employee is, and then you also have to work for some bad bosses. So, it's important to go out and get your own experience in the world and not just work in a family organization. But I think there's a lot of lessons that I learned by growing up in a business, and I want to provide the same thing for my kids. it wasn't about a huge profit motive. It was really a philosophical kind of approach to starting a business, and that has to do greatly with the values that I have and that I'm trying to pass on to my kids through doing.
Mr. Adam, have you blended your parenting and professional roles in similar ways? And how has your team responded to that integration?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I have I have two different approaches for managing my family than I do my business, and managing the personalities and the emotional side, because I can't totally run my house on processes and procedures. I've got these growing dynamic kids that they're changing every year. They change who they are. So you really have to develop and change the rules and the boundaries around your kids as they grow. Where at work, you have, I've had the experience where it's better to have a more rigid system where things are done a certain way and you have processes that never change. And you're always fighting the drift of people that get trained and know the process, they have all the tools, and then they slowly start to drift away and do things maybe easier or what they think is faster. And that's where good management comes in. But on the emotional side, I really adopt the ideology of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is, basically it's a pyramid. And at the lowest level, you need shelter and food. And then at the next level up, you need, to love and be loved. And then you need some status in your community. And basically, once you have all these things fulfilled, then you can act on your own self-interest and under your own motivation. But until you clear out something basic like food and shelter, you can't focus on anything else. You have to get food and shelter. So I just try and fulfill those needs as much as I can through the business. And with my kids, it's much more personal. I'm trying to teach them morals and values, because I think by the time somebody's my employee, it's too late to teach them morals and values. I'm not going to teach honesty to a 40-year-old man. I'm not going to teach, being on time to somebody that old. So there's a way different amount of influence you have as a father than you do in your business. So you got to be careful, because you can't run your household like a military training camp.
Hmm, definitely. And Mr. Adam, how do you adjust your work habits and expectation in early stages of fatherhood?
Oh, I mean, the early stages of fatherhood, I was really lucky. I was able to let my wife stay at home, and I went and just worked basically 7 days a week. So she took on the role of covering everything at the house and with the kids. And she's really responsible for raising the kids in definitely the first 3 or 4 years of their life, because I was in startup mode and starting this business. And in the first 3 years, you really have to throw yourself fully at it to get it to grow and turn into something, because the business success is a direct relation to how much you work on it. These things don't grow by themselves. It really takes a lot of effort, and that just turns into a lot of hours. But now that we're established and grown and we have a team of 22 people, it's a lot easier to spread around the responsibility and let people take on more difficult roles that free me up to spend more time with my kids. So that's been the whole goal, is over the last 10 years, I wanted to build this business to a point where I could leave and go and make it to soccer practice and go on their field trips and take them on vacations. And that's really where we are now. So that was the whole point, but it costs something. You have to pay that forward. You don't end up at this point. You have to slowly work your way up and figure your way up to this. And that just takes a lot of hours. So you have to get buy-in from your family. You have to get permission from your wife and your kids. And you got to also let them know what it's for. While I was doing all this work, I was bringing them along as much as I could. I'd take my kids to the hardware store. I'd have them come down to the shop and help me sweep. They've helped me paint the new building and seal the concrete and put drywall up and frame some of the walls. So I was always bringing them along, but there was just a lot of things I missed in the early years because I made this decision to go all in on this business because I didn't want to die with the regret of not ever trying. So I feel like anybody that's growing a business really just needs to, you got to put in the effort and you have to try it 100% so you don't have any regrets. If it works out, great. But if it doesn't, that you gave it everything. And I think there's a great satisfaction in even that.
Mr. Adam, how has fatherhood influenced your well being and stress management an entrepreneur?
Oh, well-being and stress management's a tough one because kids are as demanding as you'll let them be. I said earlier that kids spell love with time, and they really want as much time as you'll give them. My kids are 12 and 9 years old, so they still really very much like being around me and hanging out with me. And I hear that changes in later years. So I definitely make some personal sacrifices to spend more time with my kids, but I don't look at it as a sacrifice because most of the time, well, maybe half the time, I'm getting them to come along with some interest of mine. So, I've just recently taken up golf again, and instead of going out and hitting the driving range by myself or golfing by myself, I'll bring the kids along at least half the time that I go and get them into golf or skateboarding, or we got into BMX bikes for a couple of years and we were going down to the BMX track. So it's like your kids will find common interests with you and they'll follow you where you go. So I've been able to really blend my free time to involve my kids as much as possible. And then it's also time to have your own pursuits as well. I make it to the gym at least 4 days a week, and that's not like a huge commitment, but those 4 hours of every week are my own time to just focus on me. And that's part of my balancing act of getting pulled by family, getting pulled by the business. And, you still have to have some time for yourself is my recommendation, but that's just the balance that works for me. It's everybody's going to have their own mix. But
Yes, indeed. And Mr. Adam, as an entrepreneur and as a father, what are your short term and long term goals?
uh, short-term goals are I've got a new laser coming, get that thing installed. We're heading to FabTech, which is the biggest metalworking equipment show in North America next month in Chicago. So, I want to have a great show and, really have an impact there. It'll be my first year at the show. And, short term with the kids is get them through this first semester of homeschool. That's been kind of a new journey. I've been building a little schoolhouse at the shop, and the girls are doing their homeschool now with me. So we're figuring out how all that works and dealing with the new schedule. And long term, I'd really like to triple the size of my business, get up to $10 million a year in revenue. And long term, the kids, I just keep my expectations open there. I just hope they turn into awesome humans someday.
Yes, I want the 10 million too, Mr. Adam, and good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success. And can you please give a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an entrepreneur as well as a good father?
Business advice, my favorite one is business is a trade, just like any other skill. I came out of the Ironworkers Union as a welder, and, welding is a trade, carpentry is a trade, teaching is a trade, and business is its own trade. So if you have a skill that you're ready to sell, I would highly recommend studying business, and the art of business, and learn your finances and accounting very well, because that's the core of everything you're doing. And as a father, it's just what I've already said is kids spell love Time, not Money. So just spend time with your kids. That's really all they want, is you to be engaged with them.
Definitely. And thank you for that advice, Mr. Adam. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, the strangest one is probably The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. It's a story of a family that started from nothing and built their whole empire, really. And then by the third generation, the kids let it all go. And it's historical fiction book. It's not a classic business book, but I think it's really important to understand that cycle of growing and the excitement and the rocket ship, and then the complacency that sets in because you're comfortable, and then the stagnation hits in, and then you're on the way down. This whole journey of entrepreneurship takes constant, reinventing yourself and finding the next exciting thing to work on, because you'll hit these levels of success and you'll realize that you could be fine right here, or you could grow. And my grandfather always said, if you're not growing, you're dying. So I think that's a really important one to read. Also, the Leadership Handbook is another great book about, basically it's a primer on Edward Deming, who created the Toyota production model. He's kind of the grandfather of all of the modern corporate structure and statistical analysis for manufacturing. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned in there as well.
Hmm. Thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Adam. And fatherhood taught that many things. Did becoming a dad change how you delegate or build teams? And what benefits have you seen in your company's performance?
I think the biggest thing that has influenced my management because of having kids is realizing how unique every single person is. So I always recognize that people are unique and different, but I thought a lot of that had to do with, we all come from somewhere different. We eat different food. We have different experiences. We're exposed to a lot of different things. But seeing my own two kids in my own house that are from the same parents and raised on pretty much the same input, and how totally unique they are and what motivates them, has taught me how to deal with my employees better and create better systems that are foolproof, even down to 9 or 12-year-old level, because kids are very tricky, and adults have a lot of the same traits. They're just either better at overcoming them through their morals and values, or they're just better at hiding them. So it's really an eye opener to have kids, because it makes you look at your interpersonal relationships in a whole new way. So I'd say that's the benefit.
Well, truly, truly empowering, Mr. Adam. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Adam, based on your experiences and the stories of other entrepreneurial fathers, what practical advice would you give or offer to someone who is about to become a father while growing a business?
I would say people have been having kids for a long time, and it's not that complicated. Really, I mean, we were having kids in caves, and without antibiotics. So, your kids aren't made of glass, and they are a lot more resilient than their mother usually thinks they are. So, I think our job as fathers is to build resiliency. Mothers give the unconditional comfort and care, and dad's job is to show up and let them know that they can handle even the tough things, and even this inconvenience or pain is going to go away, and they're still going to survive and move forward. So, don't be afraid to make some trade-offs with your partner. I mean, having a good partner is the foundation of all of this, really. You've got to have somebody that you can trade these responsibilities back and forth with to make sure your kids are covered. But kids are very resilient, so don't worry too much. You got it.
You got it for sure, Mr. Adam Heffnerr. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We are Hero Machine Co., and we manufacture fiber lasers, press brakes, and CNC plasma cutters. You can check us out on YouTube at Hero Machine Co. I also have a retail business, makertable.com. You can buy lots of home decor, metal stuff, of course, signs, bar stools, garden art. And yeah, just check us out on all the social media channels, Hero Machine Co. and Maker Table Metal. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Adam Heffnerr because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering business to come. So, Mr. Adam, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel.
Marty Campbell, see you soon.